Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. In Myanmar, the anti-coup protesters have blocked train services between Yangon and a southern city. The move is part of a civil disobedience movement that has crippled many functions of the military government. Meanwhile, the United Nations has warned the Myanmar army of severe consequences for any harsh response to the pro-democracy demonstrations. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says that the Congress will establish an independent commission to investigate the Capitol riots. In a letter to the lawmakers, Pelosi said that the commission will be modeled on the 9/11 terror attacks inquiry. This comes after the U.S. Senate acquitted former President Donald Trump of a charge of inciting the riots that left 5 people dead. A little-known group, AWLIYAA, has accepted the responsibility for the rocket attack that killed an American contractor in Iraq. The group said American occupation will not be safe anywhere in the country. Earlier, the rocket strike near a military base in ERBIL also left several U.S. coalition and service members wounded. Thirty-eight people have died after a passenger bus fell into a canal in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. Police say the bus carrying around 57 passengers fell off the bridge in the Sindhi district after the driver lost control over it. The World Health Organization has approved ASTRAZENECA's coronavirus vaccine for emergency use. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has proposed a global treaty on pandemics to ensure proper transparency. Pakistan has registered over 1,000 infections and 47 fatalities overnight, raising the death toll to 12,380. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 2.4 million lives and infected over 109 million people. And in tennis, Naomi Osaka has charged into the semifinals of the Australian Open. The former world #1 thrashed Taiwanese Hsieh Su-wei 6-2, 6-2 in the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, in the men's single, Russian Arslan Kurtasev stunned Grigor Dimitrov 2-6, 6-4, 6-1, and 6-2 to reach the Final Four of the Grand Slam. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Now in Myanmar, the anti-coup protesters have blocked train services between Yangon and a southern city. The move is part of a civil disobedience movement that has crippled many functions of the military government. The army choked the internet for a second consecutive night as it intensified a crackdown on protesters. But demonstrators continued their protests across the country, demanding an end to the military rule and the release of political leaders. Meanwhile, the United Nations has warned the Myanmar army of severe consequences for any harsh response to the pro-democracy demonstrations. The UN envoy said that the right of peaceful assembly must fully be respected. Several demonstrators have been injured in crackdowns, including a woman shot in the head who is now on life support. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says that the Congress will establish an independent commission to investigate the Capitol riots. This comes after the U.S. Senate acquitted former President Donald Trump of the charge of incitement of insurrection. In a letter to the lawmakers, Pelosi said that the commission will be modeled on the 9/11 terror attacks inquiry. She said that it was critical to get to the truth of how the violence occurred. The House Speaker added that the body will also investigate interference with the peaceful transfer of power. It will also investigate the preparedness and response of law enforcement agencies. Pelosi said that the Congress needed to allocate more funds for the security of lawmakers and the Capitol. In Iraq, a civilian contractor of the U.S.-led coalition has been killed in rocket attacks outside the ERBIL International Airport. In a statement, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said several American contractors were also wounded in the attack. In a phone call with the Kurdistan's Prime Minister, Blinken called for a probe and promised to hold the culprits accountable. The ERBIL International Airport in the semi-autonomous Kurdish-run region is situated near a military base hosting U.S. troops. The Kurdish Interior Minister also reported several civilians injured as some residential areas near the airport also came under attack. Iraqi President Barham Saleh condemned the attack, saying that the strike marks a dangerous escalation. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. Iran and Qatar have laid the groundwork for Doha to act as a mediator between Tehran and the Arab states on the 2015 Iran nuclear deal.
In a meeting with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani in Tehran, Qatari Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani said, Doha is ready to play a key and effective role in establishing the regional dialogue on the nuclear deal. Sheikh Al Thani also affirmed that Doha will spare no efforts for the revival of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. He expressed hope for the U.S. speedy return to the deal to resolve challenges and sanctions within the agreement's framework. Meanwhile, President Hassan Rouhani said Iran will return to the deal as soon as the U.S. lifts its illegal sanctions and returns to law. Iran has also welcomed the Qatari effort to facilitate the revival of the nuclear agreement. Earlier, Iran informed the International Atomic Energy Agency of its plans to end snap inspection powers under the deal.
In India, the opposition has slammed Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the deaths of more than 200 farmers during the protests against the agriculture laws. This comes after another farmer committed suicide at the protest site. Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi addressed a farmers' meeting in Rajasthan to express solidarity with the protesting farmers. She said that scores of farmers have died, but the Prime Minister is not bothered. The number of troops deployed at Delhi's borders remains high as farmers warn of intensifying their agitation. The protest against the 3 farm laws has entered into the 20th week as farmers demand total repeal of the contentious laws. The Hindu community is holding a protest in Islamabad demanding justice for the 11 Pakistani Hindus killed in Jodhpur, India. Demonstrators gathered in front of the Foreign Ministry and Indian High Commission. They chanted slogans condemning the mysterious killing and the apathy of the Indian government. They said that New Delhi still has not handed over the bodies of the slain Hindus to their families. The protesters demanded immediate justice for the victims. On August 9th, 11 Pakistani Hindus were killed by Hindutva extremists in a village of district Jodhpur in India's northern Rajasthan state. For more on this, we are joined by our correspondent Minahil Ahmed from Islamabad. The core demands of these protesters demonstrating outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The All Pakistan Hindu Panchayat, along with the labour workforce of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, is protesting outside the Foreign Ministry and the Indian High Commission in Islamabad. They're basically the protesters over here. They're carrying slogans and banners and are demanding justice for the 11 Pakistani Hindus that were killed in the Jodhpur district of India last year in August. They're here, and basically their core demand from the Indian government is to not just allow a free and fair investigation into the matter, but to also return the ashes of the deceased so that they can be buried over here in peace in their village by the family of the deceased.
Now, Minahil, what's the reaction from the Indian authorities? Are they going to fulfill their demands?
Yes, well, Pakistan has repeatedly requested India to give the necessary information regarding the killing of the 11 Pakistani Hindus that took place last year. But so far, there has been absolutely no response from the Indian government. Pakistan has also requested the United Nations to intervene and for India to allow a free investigation by the UN authorities into the matter. But so far, the Indian government has not given any response, hence why repeatedly protesters are gathering outside the Indian High Commission and demanding for justice, demanding for relevant information of the killings that happened in Jodhpur, and are also demanding for the ashes of the deceased.
All right, Manahil Ahmed, thank you so much for updating us. Now moving on, Pakistan has asked India to take genuine steps towards resolving the Kashmir dispute instead of misleading the world through its guided tours. The statement by the Foreign Office follows reports that India is planning a trip of foreign diplomats to occupied Kashmir. It said that the planned visit is another Indian attempt to divert attention from its human rights violations in the region. The Foreign Office said that the illegal and inhuman military siege that has continued for over 18 months is visible to the world. It said that India must allow United Nations observers and international media to visit the occupied valley and see the situation on the ground. 38 people have died after a passenger bus fell into a canal in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. Police say that the bus was carrying over 50 passengers, which fell off the bridge in the Sindhi district after the driver lost control over it. Police said that the bus was overcrowded as the 32-seater vehicle had 57 passengers. 7 people had been rescued and search for the rest of the passengers was underway. Earlier, police said 5 women were killed and 30 others were injured after their vehicle plunged into a canal in Tamil Nadu. At least 60 people have died after a boat capsized in the river in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Humanitarian officials say around 300 people have been rescued, but more than 240 are still missing. They say 700 people were on board the whaling boat that sank in the western Ma-Nundumbi province. Authorities said that the vessel departed from the capital, Kinshasa, and was heading to the Equator province. They blamed that the overload of the cargo and passengers for the accident. Officials added that night navigation also played a role in the capsizing. The World Health Organization has approved the ASTRAZENECA's coronavirus vaccine for emergency use. Globally, the virus has claimed over more than 2.4 million lives and infected over 109 million people. More in this report.
The global battle against COVID-19 is staggered by a lack of coordination among federal and state governments, nepotistic scandals and shortages. In the U.S., the National Governors Association has written to President Biden, voicing concerns about poor coordination in vaccine distribution. Meanwhile, Mexico has begun a rocky rollout of vaccines for millions of residents over 60. Colombia is set to begin inoculations following the arrival of the first vaccine shipment from Pfizer. Peru's government and the Public Prosecutor's Office are investigating the vaccination of 487 high-ranking officials outside clinical trials.
Buenas noches, peruanos y peruanas.
I am highly disappointed after finding out that 487 people took advantage of their position to be immunized with the Sinopharm vaccines. I deeply regret that in the list provided by Cayetano Heredia University, there are people who have been part of the government. Among them are the former Foreign Affairs Minister and former Health Minister. You will understand that we are outraged because these people were part of our transition government.
The European Union is kicking off a new program to study mutations to prepare for the next generation of vaccines that might be needed. Spain says it will approve a new aid package to bolster the finances of companies hit by the coronavirus pandemic in March. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has proposed a global treaty on pandemics to ensure proper transparency. He said the UK will plot a cautious but irreversible path out of the lockdown as he faces pressure to ease restrictions.
We still don't have enough data about the exact effectiveness of the vaccines in reducing the spread of infection. We have some interesting straws in the wind, we have grounds for confidence, but the vaccinations have only been running for a matter of weeks. And while we're learning the whole time, we don't today, as I talk to you today, we don't have all the hard facts that we need.
Over in Asia, Japan is scrambling to secure special syringes to maximize the number of vaccine shots used for each vial. However, manufacturers are struggling to ramp up production quickly, raising fears that millions of doses could go waste. South Korea has announced plans to buy vaccines for 23 million more people, a day after authorities scaled back initial vaccination plans, citing delays and efficacy concerns.
While in Pakistan, 47 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. This has pushed the death toll to 12,380. The health ministry says 958 people tested positive for the virus overnight. Officials say the tally of nationwide infections has crossed 564,000, out of which 527,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, the number of active COVID-19 cases in the country has dropped to 25,000. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has left for a two-day trip to Egypt on the invitation of his Egyptian counterpart, Sami Hassan Shokri. During the visit, both sides will discuss ways to further enhance bilateral relations. In a video message before departing for Cairo, Qureshi said that there are vast opportunities of economic cooperation between the two countries. Qureshi said promoting trade relations with Africa is among Islamabad's priorities. The foreign minister will also hold meetings with the Pakistani community in Egypt as well as with the Egyptian businessmen. Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has returned to Russia court for a trial on slander charges. Navalny has denounced the charges, calling them politically motivated. The opposition figure stands accused of defaming a World War II veteran for his participation in a promotional video. He described the people in the video as traitors and corrupt lackeys. However, Navalny says that the authorities are using the slander charges to smear his reputation. Meanwhile, state prosecutors have asked the court to fine him $12,962 for slander. The Kremlin critic is already facing a 3-year jail term over parole violations that sparked nationwide protests. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United States has attempted to de-escalate ongoing diplomatic dispute with NATO ally Turkey. This comes after Ankara slammed Washington over the hesitance to blame PKK for killing of 13 Turks kidnapped in Iraq. In a phone call with Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reassured that the United States held PKK militants responsible for executions. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said that the secretary also expressed condolences for the deaths of Turkish hostages. Earlier, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan lashed out at the United States, calling its initial statement a farce. Turkey also summoned the U.S. ambassador to Ankara to convey its reaction in the strongest of terms. The relations between Washington and Ankara remain sore over Turkey's purchase of S-400 from Russia and U.S. support for Kurdist militants in Syria. The United States and France have vowed to strengthen bilateral relations between the two countries. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and French President Emmanuel Macron reiterated their commitment in a phone call. In a statement, the Vice President's office said that the two leaders agreed on the need for closer multilateral cooperation. It said that they also discussed numerous regional challenges, including those in the Middle East and Africa. The statement added that the two leaders stressed the need to confront regional and global challenges together. Germany says it wants Europe and the United States to strengthen transatlantic ties. Transatlantic coordinator for German government Peter Bayer said that these remarks in an interview. Bayer said that Germany and Europe now have a historic chance to improve relations with the United States. He said Berlin and Washington should think big and aim for ambitious agenda based on shared values and joint interests. Bayer added that the differences must not prevent the two sides from closely liaising on economic, trade, tax, and climate change policies. This comes as U.S. President Joe Biden is set to hold his first meeting with the other G7 leaders, including Merkel. New Zealand has slammed Australia's act of disowning a citizen alleged to be an ISIS member. Canberra has unilaterally cancelled the citizenship of the terrorist suspect currently detained in Turkey. Talking to reporters in Wellington, New Zealand, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said that the woman was a dual citizen of Australia and New Zealand. Ardern said Canberra's move has forced Wellington to assume responsibility for the woman. She criticized Australia for exporting its problems, accusing it of not having acted in good faith. Responding, Aussie Prime Minister Scott Morrison said that he was merely putting Australia's national security interests first. A sprawling blast of winter weather across the country has left some 8 million households without power in the United States and Mexico. A cold snap in Texas forced the state's electric grid operator to impose rotating blackouts. Amid the rare deep freeze, President Joe Biden has declared an emergency, unlocking federal assistance to Texas. The cold also reached the northern part of neighboring Mexico, where around 4.7 million users lost power. However, the authorities said that the service had been restored to almost 2.6 million customers. Meanwhile, another storm is on the way, expected to bring more snow from Texas up through Washington to New York and other cities. In Jordan, a Syrian refugee woman has come up with ways to spread happiness in the dusty lives of the inhabitants of the refugee camp. More in this report.
Over 80,000 Syrian refugees live in the Zatari refugee camp in the hot and rugged Mefrak governorate. The refugee camp is considered a temporary residence. However, the wait for settlement can be extended for years. But getting married in a refugee camp does not mean giving up on the dream wedding dress. For aspiring brides, one of the refugees, Noor, is nothing less than an oasis in their otherwise distressed lives. She started her business of wedding dresses, hairdos, and makeup for the brides of refugee camp in 2012.
When the groom comes to get the bride, it is so sweet. It makes me happy that they like my work. I feel my work is like art. If this work touches your heart, you know you have to do it.
While Noor's work spread happiness, it also helps her earn a dignified living. Her shop is one of the 500 in the camp. Like many of her clients, Mona is thrilled by her work.
I have come to choose a wedding dress as I heard about Noor's salon. The dresses are beautiful and her work is so nice.
1/3 of refugees in Jordan have lost their jobs due to the economic stresses of COVID-19. Such small businesses are the only hope of survival for some of the inhabitants of the Zatari refugee camp.
Finns keen to avoid gyms and other indoor sports venues this winter because of the coronavirus pandemic have found a new way to keep fit. They are running in the snow wearing no training shoes, just thick woolen socks. More in this report.
Finland has seen particularly heavy snowfall this winter, covering the landscape under a thick blanket of sleet. To some Finnish citizens, this means a great way to get some exercise and enjoy a sense of freedom. A helicopter pilot and an avid barefoot runner, Pekka Parviainen says it is the freedom and the happiness that makes him run in the snow without shoes.
This is traditional Finnish crazy stuff. I think we all agree. Yeah. It's really the happiness side. I mean, it's very good sports, strong exercise and everything, but it really is the happiness.
In Finland, barefoot running has become popular in the past few years during the warmer months. But running in socks through heavy snow, now about a half-meter deep in many places, takes this to the next level.
There's so many people actually trying once and then quite many of them want to try again and again, and that's how the disease goes on.
There's no shortage of warm woolen socks as many Finns have taken to knitting during long winter lockdowns. Parviainen recommends wearing at least 2, preferably 3, pairs of woolen socks to get the most out of the run.
Designer Jason Wu combines food and fashion in his Autumn-Winter 2021 collection at New York Fashion Week. More about the grocery store-themed event in this report.
For For this year's New York Fashion Week, designer Jason Wu came out with something refreshingly different. The creations were dished out in his 1950s-inspired Mr. Wu's General Store. It seemed more like a grocery store instead of a runway, as models walked across in gowns surrounded by baskets of fruits and vegetables and racks of soft drinks. It was based on lockdown cooking and casual clothing, featuring loose-fitted long dresses and skirts combined with knitted sweaters and long masculine coats. In a simple yet elegant coloring scheme, red and blue were popping out against whites, blacks and grays. The long fringes and boots in yellow snakeskin and pink patent leather lightened up the somber styles. The edible ingredients used in the show were donated to City Harvest, a New York charity fighting food insecurity.
China is marking the start of the Year of the Ox with grand celebrations across the country. The 2021 Spring Festival Gala, a showpiece event to welcome the Lunar New Year, has already begun and will last for 16 days. More about the Chinese New Year festivities in this report.
This year, China is pulling out all the stops to welcome the new year. The technological innovation showcase in the festival offers a unique visual audio feast to audiences. The combination of ultra-high resolution, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality technologies offers stunning experiences for viewers.
For me, this year's Spring Festival Gala is a feast of art integrated with technology. Arts, whether in the form of martial arts, dancing or singing, were all presented through science and technology. It gave the audience a feel of our country's progress in technological innovation. And I hope our country will make still better and stronger technological innovation in the future.
Huge outdoor screens have been installed in cities to spread the festive atmosphere. Folk performances, flower and light shows are being held to celebrate the occasion. Dragon dance, tilt walking, and lion dance are all part of the big festival. Tourists are also getting the chance to enjoy authentic Chinese cuisine while enjoying the gala. A dish, namely shanchi big bowl noodles, which is of rich flavor, is a favorite of tourists. Opera, acrobatics, and fashion shows are also attracting the attention of tourists. The festivities started from the Lunar New Year's Eve will continue to the 15th day of the first lunar month.
European stocks are trading mixed as investors monitor developments on the coronavirus vaccine rollouts. London's FTSE has gained over 0.5%, while Europe's stock 600 has edged up marginally. Germany's DAX, Italy's FTSE MIB, and the CAC 40 in Paris have all dipped fractionally under the flat line. Earlier, all Asian bourses traded higher, with mainland Chinese markets shut for the Lunar Year holidays. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.